I owe my career right now in journalism to my 8th grade teacher, Mrs. Pomeroy. I always loved to write, and I was, dutifully kept a journal. But it wasn't until I took her class that things kind of fell into place. She had assigned us to read The Diary of Anne Frank, required reading for any kind of middle school student, and I felt that book touched me in profound ways. You're reading a story of someone who went through this horrible tragedy, but your same age, and also going through these same kind of prepubescent experiences of love and a crush and whatnot. And so I wrote my essay and I turned it in, and when she gave it back to me, she said, you should really think about a career in writing. And she said, why don't you join the school paper? And I did. I joined the middle school paper, and that was it. I was hooked.
Well, I have to think about my first homeroom teacher, Mrs. Rose Anderson. Back in those days, we could at Booker T. Washington, where I went to high school. We went there from 7th through 12th grade, and she was my homeroom teacher for 3 years. But it was just like she was just like another mom to us. She cared about us, she nurtured us, and she really did a great job in helping raising us with my parents.
My favorite teacher was in junior high school. His name was Mr. Bobo, and he was a band teacher, and he always pushed me to compete with the next flute. I was a flautist, and he always said, you can do better, I know you can beat the next person, and it sort of taught me a competitive spirit that I could always do a little bit better and get somewhere. And when I would get to the next seat in band, I was like, wow, he taught me that I could do it.
My favorite school teacher was in high school, and it was Mr. Desert. And Mr. Desert was a physics teacher, and I never thought of myself as an up-and-coming great physics student, but he made it simple and made me feel successful in the content, and I passed with great grades, and I really never thought I would. So it was a situation where the teacher instilled a lot of confidence in a subject that I didn't feel like I was the smartest guy in the room, and he made me feel otherwise.
If I have to go back and think of my favorite teacher, I probably should think of someone in high school or even junior high, because there was no middle school at the time, it was junior high. But I have to go back all the way to elementary school. And I go back to elementary school because I've never been very athletic, and there was this coach, and it was Coach Montgomery at Kinloch Elementary School. And I think he was very influential in my life because he gave me the courage to participate in sports, play sports. Even when I was the last person picked for a team, he said, that's okay, that's fine, it's what it's all about, you're gonna give it your best. To the point that by the time I graduated from elementary school in 6th grade, I achieved at the time, something that was called the Presidential Award for Physical Education.
Mr. Cross from my 5th grade, David Fairchild Elementary, really challenged me and told me that not just in the classroom, but in everything I do in life, how to excel. So I remember him. Mrs. Kreinig from my high school was an advanced literature, and I entered the class not liking literature, and I left still loving literature, so I think she did a good job.
My favorite teacher actually taught me physical education in elementary school and was a very adept teacher at that, and then miraculously arrived in high school teaching me Americanism versus Communism, which was a required course at that time, and he turned out to be an excellent history teacher, which I never could quite grasp how he was able to do both things so well. And he taught me to, basically open up my eyes and make sure that what people were telling me were was accurate. It made me question things.
I remember my second grade teacher, she had us make cookies, and we were making them for Valentine's Day, and we made the dough and did all this stuff, and then we brought it to the school cafeteria so that the cafeteria manager would bake our cookies, and I loved that. And it just seemed like all of the extra projects and the fun things that tied in with our education really is what made the class and the school so much fun.
As I think back in my school years, you know, I reflect on a particular teacher who I would say changed the way that I think. And I still remember him. His name, he was my math teacher in calculus, and his name was Mr. Moore. And what was interesting about Mr. Moore was he was the first teacher I had who actually challenged the students to think. And when I say think, it wasn't simply about when he gave you a problem, it wasn't just a problem that was calculus. In order to solve that problem, you had to apply all the different predecessors of calculus, such as algebra, trigonometry, and everything else that you had learned over the course of your entire school career in order to answer this one calculus problem.
I'm forever grateful to Miami-Dade County schools. When I was coming along, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, learning difference, and if it wasn't for my teachers who cared about me, Miss Chisel in third grade, who first said to my mother that, you know, Kendrick, he's bright. You talk to him, everything is fine, but when it comes down to his reading and math, something's wrong. And back then, we didn't have what we have now, understanding children learning differences.